Yeah. More strategies in the building. Tactical mind, stay ready. Let's go! Yeah. We ain't just talking, we live what we teach. From the breach to the breach, every lesson is elite. Calm, tight, shots right, but that's only the start. Cause tactical medicine, man, that's the heart. Be the crew you pull when the stakes get heavy. Pressure on scene, but the hands stay steady. Rest your mindset, every second we're calculating. Life on the line, no time for hesitating. No, R-A-N-T, yeah, we train with a purpose. Tactical rescue, tactical med, all service. From the team to the street, keep the skills tight. Cause every love's a look, it's reps done right. SWAT stack moving, but the medic's in the flow. If a teammate drops, we already know. Turn a kid fast, that way lock, beating, stop, stabilize, mobilize, evac non-stop. But it ain't just teams, civilians need the knowledge. Every home, every job, more power to the college. Prepare the same fear with some mindset shift. And land brings the tools so your whole crew's equipped. Oh, R-A-N-T, yeah, we train with a purpose. Tactical rescue, tactical med, all service. From the team to the street, keep the skills tight. Cause every life ain't luck, it's reps done right. So when the tones drop and the chaos hits, we don't freeze, we adapt, overcome, commit. Grand strategies, where the mission gets well. Train hard, stay sharp, that's the operator
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Sunday night live show. To get this thing started, I do want to say go Eagles to anybody on the East Coast that's a Philly fan. They are, last I checked, third quarter with San Francisco. It's tough not to be distracted by that as the notifications come in, but we're committed to doing the show. So here we go. We're going to get right into it. First off, to the guys that are in the chat and saying what's going on. Terminal Element, I saw you in here. What's going on, brother? Anybody else that's coming in, welcome to the show. Make sure you say hi when you get into the chat. What we're getting into tonight is a topic that really affects everyone, whether you're walking to your car at night, working in a dim environment, or just navigating a space where visibility drops. We're talking about how people perceive threats, but when they're faced with also dealing with low light. And it's really fascinating because if you've never really thought about it much, low light changes pretty much everything when we're trying to adjust to it. Your depth perception, your ability to identify shapes, your reaction time, even your confidence. The human brain fills in the blanks when it can't see clearly, and the real issue lies in the fact that sometimes it fills those blanks in with the wrong data because it's just trying to hypothesize everything that it's taken in. So tonight we're going to break down the psychology, going to get into the science, and the real world implications of how people pretty much interpret danger when the lights go down. So before we get into how people perceive threats in a low light environment, we need to talk about something that's become a huge part of modern operations, and that is night vision. So we're talking PVS 31s, even if you're just using a PVS 14 monocular. All this comes into play whether you're searching for a subject, trying to navigate unfamiliar terrain, or just trying to maintain awareness in a dark environment. Night vision has really become one of the most valuable tools that we have. In all reality, it's kind of like having a superpower. The fact that you can literally see in the dark. So, it's really just kind of capitalizing and enhancing all of your natural abilities because your eyes really struggle in low light. Depth perception drops, contrast appears, and your brain just starts trying to fill in the blanks. So night vision really does a good job of just helping to bridge that gap. It gives you clarity where your eyes would normally be guessing. And if you keep that in mind, it's not just for tactical advantage. In search and rescue operations, night vision can be the difference between finding someone quickly or losing precious time. It helps you, pick up different. Rich is trying to come in now. Bunch of background noise, Rich.
There's no noise here.
Yeah, you got a bunch of background noise. Weird. And no picture. But what I was saying was, again, the night vision kind of just it gives you clarity when your eyes will be guessing. And again, it's not just for a tactical advantage. In search and rescue operations, night vision can be the difference between finding someone quickly or, losing a lot of precious time. There are a bunch of things when it comes to search and rescue that night vision really plays a key role in, especially if the person has any sort of headlamp, their cell phone, any sort, and if they have to have a visible light beacon on them, because of how much night vision can enhance ambient light, you can really hone in on position pretty quickly. It can just help you just with things like that. But from more of our perspective here, it can help you pick up movement. It can really help you identify shapes and on a whole navigate safely without relying on bright lights that, number one, can obviously give your position away, but two, it can also disorient you or even the person that you're trying to help to begin with. So it's kind of playing that balance of, are you able to use this effectively and is it practical for your mission? And the thing about it is, if we do utilize night vision, we don't want it to replace, it doesn't replace our natural perception. It just supports it. It really just gives you information to work with, which means you're making better decisions, you have better awareness, and ultimately, the end result of that would be you having better outcomes. And that really ties directly into tonight's topic. How our brains interpret danger and uncertainty and movement when visibility drops. So if we just break down what happens to your perception in a low light, and what's nice about this is all of us have been in low light environments. We as we're talking through this, we can understand things that we've seen and different reactions that we've had to situations in low light environments. So keep all those in mind as we're going, through a lot of this. But if we think about the reason why our brain behaves the way that it does and how tools like night vision can help compensate for those limitations, it's really cool to look at the intersection of human biology and modern technology and where those come in to give us these advantages that we utilize for professional work, whether it's search and rescue, whether it's in a tactical setting, whatever the case may be. So if you start with the basics, in the most simple terms, low light doesn't just make things darker. Again, it changes how our brain processes information because our eyes rely heavily on contrast, edges, and movement. And when those cues disappear, your brain starts guessing. And that's why shadows look like figures, and it's why small movements, if you've ever tried moving through, the woods or really anywhere else in the dark, that movements feel bigger than they really are. And the issue that comes into play there is all that guessing that your brain is doing, that can create false alarms or even cause you to miss actual alarms that you should be paying attention to. And I think all of us would agree that in a low light environment, low light amplifies uncertainty. So one of the biggest issues that we run into, especially in the law enforcement world, is misidentification. People think that they're seeing a person when it's actually just a shadow, or they could possibly think that something is harmless when it is actually a hazard. And one of the biggest things is if you ever tried to navigate while wearing night vision, your depth perception just goes out the window. Something that's 10 feet away can look like it's right in front of you, even though if you are using decent night vision, they're all meant for navigating under them, and there is no magnification. It's just what it does to your brain. It has a hard time figuring out the distances on things, which is why you have to train a whole bunch in them. Another big thing with that too is one of the biggest disadvantages of night vision is, we say, the field of view that you have. It gets extremely limited. So your peripheral vision becomes a whole lot less reliable. You might catch movement, but you're not able to interpret that. And that kind of goes right in there. Something worth mentioning is the fact of, if you are utilizing night vision, you don't want that night vision right up on your eyes. If anything, especially at night, you want to be wearing safety glasses and then have the night vision a little bit off of those, so you do still have some peripheral vision out of the sides. It is issues like, when you're seeing that stuff and it's coming out of the sides, you're getting that, trying to take that data in. If you have the gain on them turned up all the way, or they're just too bright, then you're completely just kind of getting tunnel vision in what the night vision is giving you with it, and you're kind of taking your peripheral vision out of play. And we definitely don't want to do that. Now, this is also, when you do that, this is where stress can really kick in, and because your brain hates uncertainty. So that's one of those things that we always are trying to battling against. And I just want to read the comment here. Let's streamline my employer's DMR network and a person from Philadelphia. Well, an embarrassment. Well, yeah, man, radio networks, it's always fun to listen to other guys, what they're doing, how they're using their comms and what's coming across on them. From element, you have to change up your medical practice all with night vision. We're going to get into that a bunch. I just wanted to start with the basic as far as just operating in a low light environment, and then we're going to get into how night vision can really come into play, or just doing medical care in a low light environment does come into play. But let's talk about how light affects the way people perceive threats, because low light forces the brain to, again, work with incomplete information. Instead of seeing details, you're kind of seeing outlines. Instead of seeing faces, you're just seeing the shapes. The brain tries to fill in the gaps, and it often fills them in with whatever it thinks is most likely, or if you're in an increased threat environment, what is most dangerous. And that's why people either overreact or underreact to situations when in these environments. It's because their brain is basically guessing. And think of situations where someone thought they saw a person standing in a hallway, but maybe it was just a coat hanging on a rack, or the opposite. Someone didn't notice a person because they blended into the shadows. In both cases, the environment dictated the perception, not the reality of what actually was going on. And I always like to address mistakes. And one of the most common mistakes that we see when people are operating in low light environments is that they kind of assume that they're seeing the whole picture, when in reality, they're seeing maybe 40% of what you would normally see in daylight. And people forget that their senses are compromised, and they kind of rush into making decisions without having too much confidence behind what they're doing. Now, since we're all now kind of all caught up and on the same page with, obviously how we train, and we're kind of all in agreement on how valuable stress inoculation is during training, how does stress interact with low light perception? And the biggest thing here is that we all are pretty familiar and already know that stress itself narrows our focus. In low light, it kind of takes a double hit. Your vision's already limited, and now your attention is too. You're missing things in the periphery. you misinterpret movement and your reaction time slows down a bunch. So basically you have stress and darkness just amplifying each other. And what can be in the most, basic of ways that you can do to improve your awareness in low light environments, that would be the biggest thing when we're doing our courses, is kind of just telling everybody, hey, slow down, give your eyes time to adjust. And I'll just mention this here because this is one of the things that I kind of go into depth in our low light operations course. So I figured we can just share it on here with everyone, because this is just kind of a deeper understanding for everybody that watches this video. If you think about it, humans are built for living in the daytime and sleeping in the dark, but we only need, roughly 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But because there are more hours of night in most latitudes for much of the year, we tend to live this diurnal life. So we need eyes that can fill our needs in both light environments and in dark environments. So if you get in your eyes, we have the retina, which is your light sensitive part, and it has cells called cones for seeing colored light and rods for detecting movement in dim light. And we have 20 times more rods than cones, yet our vision is still dominated by cone mediated vision. The cones are used mainly for color vision. The rods are for black and light in low light levels. And in daytime, we live our lives in detail. But at night, our primary means for seeing, genetically throughout our human history, is for threat detection. So since threats tend to sneak up you from the sides or from behind, the rods were placed at the periphery of your eye while the cones occupy the central part of our vision. And the effect is that at night, we can detect motion at the edge of our view, which is why when you're doing anything at night, if you're trying to walk across a field, if you think about it, you're constantly scanning because your eyes are trying to pick up any movement that it can find. Now, one of the big takeaways here is the fact that the rods don't work on their own. Rods themselves are inert. Their type of nerve needs a chemical to enable their function, and the body doesn't produce the chemical in the daytime. It takes very low light levels that are sensed by our eyes to produce the chemical called rhodopsin, or visual purple. And when the light is detected at a low level for about 20 minutes or so, the body starts producing rhodopsin, and our natural night vision starts setting in. So since the big player is rhodopsin, and that takes about 20 to 40 minutes of production for humans to start benefiting from it, the key trait of this feature is that rhodopsin is photoreactive, and it only takes a few seconds of bright light to cause rhodopsin to decay with a photosensitive reaction. And, that's why if you ever wondered why we traditionally use red filtered light for night operations, we're taking advantage of the fact that deep red lights do not trigger the neutralization of rhodopsin. Now, one important thing to note here is that unless the light is monochromatic, like a red laser, even red light has elements of other colors. So a bright red light can also produce, or it can reduce enough light to reduce rhodopsin. So you really want a dim red light, because that's going to be best for maximizing your after dark eye behavior. So that's a lot there. As far as the cells responsible for your color vision, the cones, they don't function well at low light. And this is why night vision is almost entirely monochromatic. In dark areas, we only see kind of what become, shades of black and white. Hence the new trend of this disruptive gray, like combat pants and tops everybody's going to. If you're not familiar, that's kind of designed for urban environments, low light environments. It's taking advantage of the fact that they understand humans see just shades of gray at night. We make the clothing itself a shade of gray. Now you blend into the environment that much better. So this should kind of begs the question, if we look at some, like, again, somewhat original night vision here. PVS 14 is still good. It's kind of like the staple. It's still used today. Gives you good image, has good light magnification. And basically what I was trying to point out to is the fact of, if you look here, the traditional night vision used a green light. But we just said, why would, if our eyes see naturally in black and white, why do we want green? So the phosphors of your night vision device, so those like PS14, were deliberately chosen to make those pictures green because our eyes are more sensitive to green light, which kind of makes sense. Now come your white phosphor tubes. And that technology actually uses a grayscale. And they're definitely finding that the images produced by a white phosphor device may be more familiar to the human eye, which naturally perceives poorly lit scenery in shades of gray, like we've been saying. So your white phosphor devices use Gen 2 Plus technology, and they're also not as affected by blooming, which make them better environments for your urban environments. So basically what they're finding is that if you're wearing your night vision for long periods of time, even though your light is more sensitive to the green light, it kind of causes some eye fatigue where everybody's kind of transitioning to white phos tubes because it's a more natural color on your eyes and your eyes don't get as fatigued as readily from wearing these for long periods of time. And to close this out and directly relate it to the path I was headed down, I would say, don't assume that your first impression is accurate when you're utilizing night vision. It's one of those things where, you need to use multiple senses. You want to listen, feel the space, pay attention to any movement rather than detail. Dan, what's up, brother? How are you? Thanks for jumping on here. And most importantly, stay calm. I think that the calmer you are, the more information your brain can process. And that is huge when operating at nighttime. So, guys, kind of the big takeaways from this would be that low light, it doesn't just hide things, it really changes how your brain interprets the world. And the more you're aware of that, the better decisions you'll make while operating in a low light environment. So I think this is good. Obviously, Rich had some technical issues. He couldn't jump on here and kind of go back and forth and bounce ideas off of each other. But low light perception affects everyone. And understanding how your brain reacts in the dark, it can make a huge difference in how you navigate the world when it's dark out. What we're going to do is, I think in the next episode, Terminal Element asked, do we have to change up our medical practice at all when we're using night vision? And we do and we don't. It's kind of a two-edged, double-sided sword, two-edged sword, whatever you want to call it. And that's what we're going to do in the next video. We will look at specifically medical interventions in low light, under night vision, how everything changes. So, guys, questions coming up here. Terminal Element, decreasing cognitive workload as a stressful environment makes sense. Yeah, 100%. So, again, the nighttime just makes you more under stress as is because your body's trying to compensate for not getting all the data that it's normally used to. Putting yourself in a stressor or having a stressor to deal with on top of that really just kind of can send you over the top and make things that much more difficult. So it's really good stuff to train if you've never trained it. We do a lot with our March assessment stuff in low light with strobe lights. Then we kind of mess with more of the senses by either playing loud music or loud sounds, some screaming and yelling, just to kind of overload the person in a dark environment, because just shutting the lights off is kind of the first key on that. If any of you guys out there are firemen, think of all of the mass confidence drills that you do. It's amazing. Anybody virtually could do a mass confidence drill if they were able to see. As soon as you take away somebody's vision, well, now everything is that much harder because you're relying on every other sense that you have to try to navigate through it. So, guys, with that, this is kind of a quick one. Eagles are still on, but it's a good topic. This was the introduction to it. And like I said, next episode, next Sunday, don't forget, Wednesday or Thursday, we're going to do a comms related. Next Sunday, We will go into the tachymetric side of night vision specifically. So appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Again, it was a short one, but thank you all.